Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, July the 9th. We are starting a few minutes late, but I'm glad to be here with you. And let's hope our usual friends show up with interesting topics for us to discuss. And let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. Today, the setup here is a little bit different, so I hope everything is working well. And in the meantime, let's take a look at the news. Let's see what's going on. Let me share. Hopefully, you can see my screen now. And the main headline over here, the main headline is about the electricity grid in Brazil, and this is somewhat typical, right? Like, I mean, the government usually doesn't keep the pace with the demand. So every now and then we have shortages of electricity. Even though for the last, let's say 5 years, it has been kind of, very decent, I would say. But the headline over here is saying that according to, the projected capacity, we're going to be facing some shortage in the near future. So this is the main headline. Let's see what else we have. We have a bunch of news related to sports, related to, some subjects that are very particular to Brazil. Interesting, nothing related to the United States, which is extremely common, right? And actually, up to yesterday, there was a headline over here, like the main headline at the UOL portal, addressing, like a lawsuit from the United States against one of the justices at the Brazilian Supreme Court. And that's related, like to freedom of speech and the, very tough control that the Brazilian government pursues in terms of social media, right? So very different approach here in Brazil. Very easy for, the Brazilian legal system to control social media. And naturally, not surprisingly, nowadays, the current federal administration has a tight grip on the discourse on social media, right? So that's what we see going on. Let's get back to our chat and see if we have any participations so far. All right, we have Jeannie. Yes, perfect. Thank you for letting me know, Jean. Code Academy. I want to move to Brazil. There you go, Code. You are in good company. Most of our audience over here, they are working towards the same goal. Let us know, Code, what do you have in mind in terms of destination, in terms of planning? Let us know in which point of your journey you are. We have Didi. Hola, Didi. How you doing? Good to see you back. And we have Wayne. Sound and video is okay. Thank you very much for letting me know. And talking about, moving to Brazil and your journey to Brazil, typically buying real estate is going to be one of the main concerns a foreign citizen is going to have. Naturally, because if you're coming to Brazil, right, like ideally you would have a place of your own. And typically this is going to be done on a cash basis, okay? Because banks in Brazil, it is somewhat difficult for them to assess income from a different country, to check credit scores. Just as you may imagine, Brazilian entities, they don't have access, for instance, to, the credit bureaus that typically you have in the US, such as TransUnion and Equifax and so on. So typically, they're going to say, you know what, like, I don't understand income from, the United States. I don't have access to the credit score system, and therefore, I'm not going to finance anything to foreign citizens. Now, some developers are starting to offer, some type of finance. This is very typical, for instance, in Florianopolis. In Florianopolis, even like smaller developers, they are going to have some type of solution to foreign citizens. But because they are small developers, typically this is going to be for the short term. So we're talking more about 24 or 36 months. But now some larger developers, they're trying to develop a more long-term solution. And this is something that like our partner Remax Nomad States could potentially assist people with, right? And this is something new. Like we've been in this space for uh, about 20 years, and that's the first time we see something being offered like in the range of a 10-year finance, right? Like so 300 actually, 360 months of finance. That's something very, new, particularly because it's being led by a developer and not a bank, which is typically, the finance party in mortgage in Brazil. So pretty good news for foreign citizens. Not maybe ideal for the real estate investor visa, because for the real estate investor visa, you do need to present the minimum amount upfront, otherwise you're not going to get it. But for those of you, for instance, if you have a Brazilian partner and you can stay in Brazil without the need for the real estate investor visa, buying on a finance basis could be interesting to you, right? So that's a pretty big news that I wanted to share with you today. All right, Jeannie, bom dia, Luciano. If you obtain residency through retirement, how long can you drive on a valid USA driver's license with an international driving permit? So that's an interesting question, Jeannie. And typically, Brazil doesn't care much about an international driver license, right? Like there are some international bodies, they kind of, try to present an international version of whatever license you have. But they are not typically recognized in Brazil, right? So if you are in Brazil and you try to show an international driver license, that may be kind of ignored by a police officer, right? On the other hand, national driver licenses, they are legally accepted in Brazil, typically for the first 6 months of your stay in the country, right? So we have many clients naturally who come from the United States, our main market, as you probably know, and they stay here in Brazil for up to 6 months, and they are able to use their U.S. driver license. Of course, it needs to be valid, okay, and they can use that if there is a traffic stop and the police officer asks for their driver license, they are going to present their U.S. driver license, which is going to be accepted. Of course, you also need to present, not of course, I think, that's something new to you, but for us who have been, advising on that, there is also a need for you to present your passport. So, like in Brazil, we ask for your driver license, which can be a foreign driver license plus your passport, and those two things together, they are going to be accepted for up to 6 months. So something else that a police officer could ask in theory is like, do you have an evidence that you've been here for, certain amount of time, right? It's difficult to ask you for an evidence that you have not been here for over 6 months, but typically they do ask you, and whatever you inform, this is going to be acceptable. In terms of securing a Brazilian driver license, that's something you can pursue after you get the RNM card, right? Like the RNM card is the resident card. Once you get the resident card, with this resident card, then you can apply for a Brazilian driver license based on your existing driver license abroad, which needs to be valid, right? So in Gene's case, let's say he comes to Brazil, he can use his US driver license for the first 6 months. In the first 6 months, he could eventually get the RNM card, the resident card, and then based on the resident card, plus his US driver license to apply for a Brazilian driver license. All right. So that's more or less, Gene, your journey in terms of driving in Brazil. Now, just because we're talking about driving, like in Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and major capitals, typically, I don't like to drive much. All right, that's more me personally. Wherever you go, like you're not gonna find, parking spots. You're gonna need to find like a paid parking area, a garage, and typically there is a lot of friction, right? Like, I mean, it's not like smoothless. Like, I mean, if you go to a mall, yes, it's gonna be smoothless because you're gonna get like sometimes a paper ticket, or you're gonna be able to pay for the parking using your like your account that you have with the state to pay, for instance, for tolls and these type of things. But if you need to find if you're driving to some place you don't know, you're gonna need to find a parking area. And typically, you're going to need to park the car. You're going to need to go to a cabin to pay for the thing. There is a lot of friction, right? Like just right there, I think you're going to waste like half an hour. And if you're just taking an Uber, which in Brazil is typically cheaper than what you're going to see in the United States or Europe in general, there is zero friction, right? Like, I mean, this car is going to pick you up, in anywhere you are, in any place you are, and it's going to drop you off by the destination without any friction whatsoever, right? So I really love Uber. Now, naturally, let's say if you are in Rio de Janeiro and you want to drive it to Búzios, or you want to drive it to Ilha Grande, you want to drive it to, like the countryside of Rio de Janeiro, then Uber is not going to work at all. And in this case, what you can do is you pretty much rent a car just for this event, let's say just for this weekend. Okay, so that's personally my strategy. I don't like to drive it myself. Another nuance, at least in Rio de Janeiro, like when you consider older neighborhoods, right? Like the south zone of Rio de Janeiro. We're talking about Copacabana, Leblon, we're talking about Ipanema. For some reason, the parking spots, they are tiny. They're so tiny that if you get like a car that's a little bit on the bigger side, you're not going to be able to park anywhere, right? Like, I mean, or you're going to take two parking spots. This is going to become a problem for you. So this is something you can also, or you should also pay attention to when shopping for properties, right? Like, is there a parking spot that I'm going to be able to use? Or is it so tiny that I'm not going to be able to have a car over there, right? I know it sounds like kind of difficult to believe, but it is the reality. In many buildings, in Leblon, for instance, right? In Leblon, that's what you see. Now, for a little bit more modern buildings, then, what they're typically doing, they are getting some spots for smaller cars, and then they have some specific spots for bigger cars, and that works kind of better. All right, let's see what else do we have. We have Ahmed. Well, welcome, Ahmed. Good to see you. Hi, Mr. Oliveira. I hope you're well. I heard there might be new updates to the investor visa along the residency based on transferred funds even before purchasing property. Is that true? Not that I know, Ahmed. No news on this front. And but there are, there are a couple of routes that Brazil is working on in terms of new tracks for you to invest in Brazil and get like an investor visa. There are, for instance, like the company-based ones, right? Like there are options for you to invest in companies. and then you don't need to buy a property. You pretty much need to invest in a business or open a business. These are tracks that we typically don't handle here at the firm because we think, like the environment, the business environment here is very harsh, particularly if you come from a country like the United States, in which everything works so smoothly, at least from the Brazilian's perspective, right? So we don't work with those tracks. But the one track that I know, that I remember about the new federal administration working on, it was on the so-called green investment, right? Like you would invest in some type of green project, right, related to the environment, and they were defining those specific requirements not long ago. All right, Ahmed. But I'm gonna take a look and see if anything was issued recently on that front. That's an interesting question, Ahmed. Didi, would it be possible to purchase land prior to citizenship? I am the one with a Brazilian mother deceased. I am in the US. Thank you for the reminder, Didi. And yes, it is possible for you to purchase land prior to citizenship. Okay, now there are restrictions. There is a specific law. It's a specific law addressing purchase of rural land by foreign citizens, right? And this law is going to apply to foreign citizens across the board. And this law is going to have the following. I mean, it has many, like clauses and approaches, right, to this purchase of land by a foreign citizen. But I'm going to share the main ones with you. Like the main one is going to be limitation in size. So up to a certain size, typically they are not going to give you any headaches. The only thing that you're going to need to do is to get an authorization from the federal government, okay? And that's for up to a certain number of acres. Now, don't ask me the number of acres because the number of acres is going to be specific to each city in Brazil, believe it or not. And we have over 6,000 municipalities in Brazil, so there is just like this huge number of municipalities and number of acres that you're going to be allowed to buy in each of those cities. So the size limitation is going to be the first one. The second one that we see is going to be the need for you to have the resident card, right? So if you read the law, there's going to be a clause that you're going to read there that says very clearly that to buy rural property in Brazil, you must be a resident, right? Like, so if you're just coming to Brazil for vacation, you are free and welcome to buy any apartments and to buy, like urban properties. But when it comes to rural property, there is an expectation that you're going to have the resident card, right? So even if you are not a Brazilian citizen, you would have access to buying rural land, as long as you remember that it gotta be of a certain size, and you may be required to have the RNM card. And interesting to note, like in some areas, the registries of land, they are going to enforce the requirements. So they're going to say, listen, if you don't show me the resident card, guess what? You're not going to have this property recorded on your name. In other areas, I don't know, they turn a blind eye. They say, you know what, like as long as you have a valid passport, I have your birth certificate with an Apple seal, I'm going to, give you a thumbs up. And I'm going to allow the recording of this land on your name. Other areas, they are not going to do so unless you have the resident card. Okay, Didi, so these are some of the nuances of buying rural land in Brazil. Let me know if that was helpful, Didi. Code, do you process for digital nomad visa? Code, yes, we do assist with the digital nomad track. I would say that typically we actually assist with the digital nomad residency, meaning that most of our clients, they are going to apply while in Brazil. Now, if you need a visa code to enter Brazil, right, enter Brazil, then typically you're going to need to apply for a visa before you are able to apply for the digital nomad in Brazil. And in this case, you can either apply straight away to the digital nomad residency. That's one option. Or the second option is for you to apply for a visitor visa, and then you can enter Brazil. And then once in Brazil, you can apply for the digital nomad residency. A heads up code. I don't know what is your nationality, but I have a heads up that for many nationalities, Brazil is becoming tougher and tougher in terms of approving any type of visa, right? I'm just going to give you some examples here that we see on a recurring basis. Egypt, Nigeria, okay, Vietnam, and many other like African, Asian countries, right? And countries from the Middle East, like, I mean, pretty typical for applicants in the United Arab Emirates to have their applications denied. I like to say I want to be very upfront and very clear because I don't want to take your money to let you know that. I can let you know without you scheduling a consultation. And I'm not talking to you, Code. I'm talking in general, right? Like if you come from one of those nationalities, you are fighting an uphill battle. Most probably than not, you're going to have your application denied. It does not matter if you meet the requirements because, in my understanding, the Brazilian immigration has this mission of denying visas and kind of reduce the immigration, or let's say the illegal immigration to Brazil. And their concern is that if you get a visitor visa, not you, Code, I'm talking in general, right? People from those countries, if you're coming from those countries, the Brazilian immigration has this belief ingrained in their heads that people are going to come here as a visitor and they're not going to leave the country. Pretty much what you see going on with the United States and Europe, right? So even Brazil, to a certain extent, is kind of trying to reduce or close the doors, to reduce the, like this immigration inflow that is happening, like actually on a global scale, if you will. All right, Code. But yes, we do handle typically, I believe, right? Like, I mean, based on the publications in the Brazilian Official Gazette, that nowadays we are the main source of services to people applying for the digital nomad visa or the digital nomad residency. All right, Bill, good to see you, Bill. Bill is joining us, and Bill says, Oi, Luciano, does Brazil have a social security system like the US? And what does it take to receive a monthly income from the Brazilian government? Good question, Bill. And yes, we have a social security, which is very similar to what you have in the United States. We are facing the same issues that the social security system is facing in the US, right? Like people are living longer. The benefits and retirement amounts, they grow over time, and there is not enough money, to be paid to Social Security beneficiaries. So this is just like, it is in the United States, but maybe to a, let's say, more challenging type of reality here in Brazil. And to make things even more difficult, something that I am very ashamed of, right? Like, I mean, particularly the judiciary in Brazil, like the judges in Brazil, they make an obscene amount of money, okay? Like they make, and I'm going to tell you, and tell me if you believe me or not, right? Some judges, they are going to make per month about, between 50 and 100 times the minimum wage, right? Like, so you have a person working, all month, like all day long for a full month, and they are going to receive a minimum wage. And then you have judges who are going to be receiving, when you consider all the benefits that they get, they are going to be receiving about 50 times, sometimes 100 times the minimum wage. And guess what? When they retire, guess what? They are going to be draining resources from the Social Security Administration, from the federal government, who will need to pay these judges, right? And in my opinion, for the quality of services we get from those judges, this is just like something that I am ashamed of, right? And don't take me wrong, there are many judges who do their job like they do their best, like to keep cases moving through the judiciary system. But the payment structure, my problem is not with the judges, my problem is with the payment structure. The payment structure for the judiciary power in Brazil, it's obscene. It's something that I never saw in any other country of the world. And so this is going to put a huge strain on the social security and the public, like finances in Brazil. All right, Bill, interesting question. And I hope I was able to answer to some extent. Jeannie says, obrigado. Thank you, Jeannie, for showing up and suggesting topics of your interest. Didi, is there a way to search for inheritance land property that may have been unclaimed from family? Didi, there are a couple of strategies you can use. One strategy is for you to search based on the Brazilian tax ID known as a CPF. So, but typically you need to pinpoint the state. So let's say if you believe that your family, your parents had some type of property in, let's say, São Paulo, right? So you need to run a search statewide in São Paulo, and there is naturally a fee associated with this search, but that's something that could be done. If you don't have the tax ID, you could still try to run the search, but typically it's not going to be as accurate because when you have the tax ID, it's much easier for those search systems to find a property related to the CPF when you just have the name, unfortunately, not so accurate. Okay, so this is one of the approaches, Didi. A second approach is going to be for you to search for a will. Nowadays, there is a kind of national database of wills. And if you have like the person's name, and again, ideally the tax ID on the CPF, you can run a search through file the wills in Brazil. So it's actually easier to find a will than it is to find an individual piece of property because the will database is like integrated, and that's not the case for real estate property in Brazil. All right, Didi, I hope that was helpful. We have William Frost. It has been a while, William. Good to see you. Hi, Luciano. Thank you for live stream and all the information you are providing us. Pretty happy to be of use, William, and to be of help, and glad to see you over here. It has been a while. Marisa Navas, boa tarde, Dr. Luciano. Boa tarde, Marisa. Que bom vê-los aqui. So glad to see you over here. Marisa and Ricardo supporting our live stream as usual. William Frost, I've seen a lot of information, videos, etc. about Balneário Camboriú, which is in the state of Santa Catarina, with the nickname Dubai of Brazil. Are there many similarities with Dubai, like shopping, or is this a marketing gimmick? William, I think it is a marketing gimmick. There are no similarities. I think they are just emphasizing that this is becoming a magnet, like for rich people, like for foreign citizens. And it's more like a marketing type of slogan than anything else, right? I don't think it looks like Dubai by any measures. It doesn't look like Dubai. It doesn't operate like Dubai. Like Dubai is in my opinion, it is what it is because of the laws. So they have a very specific laws creating this environment, right, in which Dubai exists, right, or the Arab Emirates exist, and for Camboriú, you're gonna be experiencing to a large extent the very same laws you would be experiencing in São Paulo or Rio de Janeiro, right? And talking about Dubai, we have like just like this week, like 2 clients from Dubai who are shopping in Rio de Janeiro, right? They have no interest whatsoever for Camboriú. So I don't know. I mean, if they would pick something similar or maybe try to find something different from what they have right now. But the point is, I don't think that there are many similarities between Dubai and Camboriú. Now, don't take me wrong. Camboriú, it's a great destination, and it's very successful with foreign citizens for a reason. Typically, it's safer than other areas of Brazil. Camboriú is entirely by the coast, so there is a large, or a very long coastal line, right, within Camboriú. And pretty much every property that foreign citizens are going to be buying are going to be by the coast. Maybe they are not like beachfront, but they are typically within a 3 block range from the beach. Okay, and that makes Camboriú very attractive. Again, very safe area, lots of foreign citizens, good services throughout the area. So yes, Camboriú is a great destination, William. I just think it's not anything like Dubai. All right. Code. What about digital nomad visa for Bangladeshi nationality? Code. That's unfortunately what I was mentioning about some countries. Brazil will typically strongly try to deny a visa to someone from Bangladesh. Right now, I'm just telling you our experience. Please don't shoot the messenger, right? Like it's not our desire that any nationality faces, a challenge to come to Brazil. But I'm telling you, as per our experience, like if you're from Bangladesh, if you have a Bangladeshi passport, very tough for you to secure a visa. Now, listen, there is nothing precluding you from applying, right? Like you can always make your best case and try to apply and see if it works. But in our experience, the Brazilian immigration is out there to deny your visa application. Okay, so typically they're going to be looking into your history, right? Like, I mean, if you say, well, I want to go to Brazil, right? The first question they're going to have, all right, have you been to Europe? Have you traveled to other countries? And for many applicants, this answer is going to be no, right? And as soon as they see that, they know that you're trying to immigrate to Brazil, and they are going to deny your visa application. Okay, now if you come over and they take a look at your passport, and if you've been traveling, I don't know, you've been to China, you've been to some European country, you've been maybe to other countries in Asia. Code. In this case, it changes the picture, right? Like they think, oh, this person is actually a tourist, right? This person is probably coming to Brazil to spend money on a vacation. Now, if you've never been to any other country and you say that you want to travel to Brazil for vacation, for digital nomad, whatever, Brazil immigration is going to immediately reach this conclusion that you're coming to stay, and they are going to deny your visa. All right, Cody. Being very honest, very upfront. Don't want to sound too harsh. I'm just sharing our knowledge and experience. But again, there is nothing precluding you from taking a shot and trying your best. Now, if your plan is for down the line, let's say if Code is thinking about 5 years from now, you kind of got an idea here, right? Which is like travel to other countries, maybe find other countries to which is easier for you to obtain the visa for. And once you've been traveling for a bit, then you file for a visa, for a Brazilian visa, and then your chances are going to be much higher to obtain. All right, Code. I hope that was helpful. Didi, I've learned so much from your segments. I thank you for all your help. I appreciate it, Didi. So happy to hear that. It's very, it gives me satisfaction to know that the knowledge is being helpful. That's the whole point over here, right? Like to help people to develop or to share this knowledge that we've been acquiring for the course of 2 decades in this industry, Didi. So also happy to have you over here sharing with us. Bill, is that because Lula has the judges in his pocket? Bill, that's an interesting question, and believe it or not, the answer is no. Now, I think, it's very difficult for anyone to deny that Lula has an extremely close connection with the current Supreme Court. I mean, I don't think anyone who's reasonable would deny that, this close proximity. Now, this problem, Bill, it has happened over the course of several decades. So what you see nowadays, in terms of crazy salaries for judges, right? Like, I mean, they make more money than the president, right? Like, I mean, the president of Brazil makes less money than some judges, right? Just because they keep approving like payments or like compensations and additional payments, and these things they start to add on to a point in which they are making like an obscene amount of money. But this thing has been happening over the course of decades, so it's not really, we gotta be honest here, it's not really Lula's fault. Okay, is more like, I would say, the judiciary's fault, because I mean, if you are a member of the judiciary, I think you cannot just say, well, not my fault, they're just paying me and I'm just accepting, I'm not doing that. Like, I mean, I think they should take a proactive step to say, listen, enough is enough, we don't need more money, this thing does not look decent, like this thing is not uh, compatible with the Brazilian reality, right? Like, again, in Brazil, you have people living with minimum wage, which nowadays is like, about 300 US dollars a month. Okay. And they make a living with this type of money per, for a full month. Like, they survive with this type of money. And then there is someone else who's working just like you, right? Like, okay, granted, like it's gonna be in a more intellectual type of profession, but I believe that at the end of the day, we are all doing our best to advance the society in which we live in. And then this person is making like 50 times. Again, it's not 5 times, it's not 10 times, it's not 20 times. I'm talking about 50 times, sometimes 100 times what the other person is making in terms of a salary. And I don't know how they can live with that, right? My opinion. Again, I'm not criticizing the judges for what they do, right? Many judges that I know, they do a wonderful job in terms of moving cases, of showing up in court, of doing their job as they are supposed to do. My problem is with the compensation that they accept, that they accept on a regular basis, right? It's just not something that I see happening any other place of the world, right? Like, I mean, in the United States, a judge, typically they're going to make less money than an attorney, right? And I think they should maybe make it the same, right? But judges in the United States, typically, they make less money than attorneys, and most of the judges, they typically serve for like a conviction. They say, listen, I need to do something for my society to improve the American society, if you will. Not in Brazil. In Brazil, unfortunately, the money is just like, there are attorneys in Brazil who are going to make, two minimum wages salary or three minimum wage salaries. And again, a judge typically, they are going to probably start with 30 times the minimum wage as the beginning salary for this judge, right? So something very difficult for us to, for anyone to think it would be fair, right? I think you would agree with me, Bill. But again, that's not Lula's fault, because this reality of the payments to the judiciary by the government, it has been growing like for decades, right? Like, so this was a problem at the beginning. They would say, you know what, like there is a ceiling to our payments, but if there is a decision granting us some additional benefit, we're going to take it. And then they keep adding stuff. And nowadays, this thing is just like, outside of any standard that you could defend. All right, Bill. I hope that was helpful. Denzio, good information as usual, Luciano. Good to see you, Denzio. Thank you for participating. Marisa, amamos sua live. Thank you, Marisa. Thank you for participating. Mr. Legend, hi, Oliveira, UK here. Welcome, Legend. Looking to stay in Brazil, uh, uh, working remotely to spend time with partner. Do I need to physically be in Brazil to apply for the digital nomad? If instructing you, I stay 4 weeks at a time. So, Legend, we typically file applications, yes, in Brazil. And if that's your choice, then you need to be physically in Brazil when we file the application, okay? But for most clients, or for many clients, we actually start the work when they're still in their countries of origin, right? So let's say if you are in the US right now, today is July the 9th. Let's say if you're gonna come to Brazil on September the 1st, we would typically start working with you now to prepare your documents. So once you come to Brazil, you pretty much have everything lined up for us to file when you are physically in Brazil. Some of our clients, they do hire us to apply for the digital nomad visa abroad, right? Meaning that, let's say they're still in the US, instead of securing the digital nomad residency, they want to start with the digital nomad visa application while still in the US. That's something we can do. The only major downside is that you're going to need health insurance valid in Brazil. Okay, and for most people, they don't have such health insurance. And if you try to buy from the market, many times this could cost easily a couple of $1,000s. So just this reason alone is going to drive most people to prefer applying in Brazil than applying through a consulate abroad. Okay, now we do see exceptions every now and then. For instance, for military and former military, they have a specific type of health insurance that, not surprisingly, it covers like global, worldwide coverage, right? It provides worldwide coverage. And for those people to apply in the United States or in Brazil is not going to make a difference because they don't need to go out there to buy health insurance with coverage in Brazil because they already have, right? And that happens. It's kind of rare, but some people, they have a really high kind of premium health insurance that does provide coverage. Um, on a global basis. And if that's the type of health insurance you have, yes, you would be welcome to apply either way. Okay. Now, just remember, I'm not sure if you're following, Legend, about what I said. Brazil is turning the screws in terms of letting people enter the country. If you are from a country, let's say in Asia or Middle East or Africa, chances are the Brazilian immigration is going to be out there to deny you any applications whatsoever. It could be an application for a tourist visa. It could be an application for digital nomad. They are out there to deny your application. So you do need a more longer-term strategy. That's what I was sharing with Code, such as traveling to other countries and build a profile of a world traveler. So whenever you are applying for a Brazilian visa, the Brazilian immigration is going to think, all right, this person is a traveler, right? It makes sense to give them a visa to Brazil. Now, if you never travel abroad and you're trying to come to Brazil, guess what? They are going to immediately conclude this person is not coming here for tourism. They are coming here to live here. And that's not what we are offering to his country right now. I hope that makes sense, Legend. Thanks for the videos. Very helpful so far. Connor, all right. Glad to hear. Code, I have traveled 14 countries, including Schengen area, Europe, and I need a consultancy from you. That's good news, Code. That's very good for you. If you did so, your chances of securing a visa are going to be substantially higher, right? Like, I mean, I would strongly recommend you to, have like evidence of such traveling. I know that many times the evidence is going to be like stamps on an old passport. So as long as you have this evidence, as long as the Brazilian immigration can tell that you're coming to stay for a period of time and then you're willing to come back, you have a good chance of securing a visa code. Uh, and if you need a consultation, you can come to our website, go to the About Us or Contact Us page, and you're going to see a link over there to schedule a consultation with us. It is a paid consultation, but if you happen to hire our service down the line, we typically apply a credit based on the amount that you paid, right? Meaning it's an amount that you pay for the consultation, but you can use as a credit to pay for the service, right? Like naturally, the service is going to have a higher amount, so you're going to use the amount that you paid for the consultation as a credit to reduce your actual service bill with the firm. Matthew, this video is so interesting and helpful. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for your support. Thank you for participating. Yokora, good to see you, Yokora. Olá, Luciano, bom te ver. Good to see you as well, Yokora. Thank you again for providing the real estate agent's contact information. I reach out. Really, that was fast, Yokora. And waiting to hear back. I've started looking at Properties Real on their website. Glad to hear, Yokora. Yes, they typically take like a couple of days to reply, right? There is a large number of people looking for properties. And if you're looking for you, that's the right place to look for. They actually, they serve clients throughout Brazil. We have clients in São Paulo who are using their services, but they're mostly based in Rio de Janeiro, right? So if you're looking for properties in Rio, it does sound like a good match in Yokora, okay? And there you go. Pretty good feedback. Glad to hear. Let us know how it works for you, Yokora. All right. So we are approaching the end of our live stream. We're gonna have our next live stream is gonna be on next Wednesday. Okay. Always at the same time on Wednesdays we start at 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time, and on Sundays when we have right, typically we try to keep the Wednesday live stream more consistent. For Sundays, like we have some Sundays yes, other Sundays no. So for the next couple of Sundays, I believe we're not gonna have any live stream, but we're gonna keep the Wednesday live stream consistent. So if you are missing feedback on some topic of your interest on today's live stream, make sure to come back next Wednesday for more. And legend, yes, I traveled lots of places over the years, but I spent the last year on a non-visa for Brazil. Legend, if that's the case, I don't see any problem for you to apply for a digital nomad visa abroad, even though typically our experience is going to be more with applications in Brazil, right? Another issue we have with an application for the nomad, digital nomad abroad, is that it is difficult for us to forecast the results. Consulates, they have different understandings of the visa, and within a consulate, you also have a different immigration officers applying the requirements in a different way. So very difficult for us to forecast how your particular case is going to be decided at a consulate. Now, in Brazil, there is a single body of analysts in charge of reviewing the digital nomad. It's just like a single department under the federal government located physically in the Brazilian side of things. And therefore, it's much easier for us to understand how they evaluate a certain application. So that's why, particularly if there are, some specifics of your case that could be troublesome, right? Like we typically want to apply in Brazil because then we have a better control of the process and we have better understanding of how the analyst is going to review your application. Legend, I hope that makes sense. William, are you doing live streams from your office in Texas now? William, I'm actually in Rio de Janeiro. I'm not in Texas as we speak. I'm actually in Rio de Janeiro. But yes, I am frequently in Texas, not right now. Thank you for asking, William. Wayne, I spent 27 months in Germany in the early 60s. I did not have a passport at the time. I was serving in the military. Is that considering foreign travel? Um, Wayne, listen, it has been a while. Let's say like that, right? It has been a while. And when in which country, like what is your nationality, because then we can actually help you forecast your chances of success if you tell me you're a country of nationality. But based on this fact pattern, I don't think that would count as international traveling, right, Wayne? Like when I talk about international traveling, I would say is more like, you're traveling for leisure or for business, like typically if you show your passport and, the Brazilian immigration look at it and say, well, this person he goes places, right? Like, I mean, this is the concept, like this person is traveling and he goes like to this country, spends money over there and come back. That's what they want to assess. Like, is this person coming to spend money in Brazil, or are they coming here to stay illegally? Right. That's the reasoning, and typically they are going to look at your travel history. Believe it or not, for some countries, like this is something we see very typically in the United Arab Emirates. They are going to look at how many children you have, because nowadays, for pregnant couples to come to Brazil to have a child, right, the so-called anchor baby is becoming all the rage, right? So consulates in the Middle East, especially, they always keep an eye, right? Like they're going to ask you very clearly, listen, more specifically the woman side of the couple, right? They're going to say, listen, are you pregnant, right? And then they look at you. And then how many children you have. So there was this type of discussion with a client of ours, right? With a prospective client of ours. And he did share that, and he was very, revealing how they are thinking about the visa, right? So they said, well, how many children do you have? And he said, I have a single children. They said, well, it's not that many, right? So the person was thinking, well, if the lady is pregnant, I am unable to tell. But if they just have one child, there is a very good chance that maybe, they are pregnant and they are not telling me so. And guess what? This person had a very solid background, right? Like, I'm not going to share the specifics over here, but this person had a very strong background with, solid work, working for a reputable company, making good money with property and so on. And guess what? Their visa application was denied, right? So, sharing here with you to help you in your decision process. Okay. All right. Final one. Pai Sign. Welcome, Pai Sign. If the process is done in Brazil, how much time should I plan to need to be present in Brazil? So, Pai, it depends on how far in advance we start your case. For many of our clients, we actually start before they even come to Brazil, right? So, if you start like a month and a half before your departure date, we could potentially get your application filed in Brazil in a month after your arrival, right? Or even sooner, like 15 days after your arrival, we would be filing the application. It would take approximately like a month and a half for the Brazilian immigration to review the application, hopefully approve at the first shot. After it's approved, this is published at the Brazilian official gazette. After they publish, we can schedule your appointment with the Brazilian Federal Police for biometrics. And on the biometrics day, if everything goes well, you get the RNM number, not the card. You get the so-called protocolo, which is a printout. But at that point in time, you are a resident already. And then the physical card is going to take an additional couple of months to become available. All right, Pai, I hope that was helpful. I want to thank you all for the interesting participations, interesting points. Thank you for following us, and I hope to see you again on next Wednesday. You guys have a blessed rest of your day.